Welcome to Dr. Kim. In this explainer, we are jumping right into a fascinating experiment where we will study the adsorption of dyes using activated carbon. It's an incredibly simple yet wildly effective method for removing colored impurities and toxic pollutants right out of our water. We constantly hear about industrial dyes ruining ecosystems. They're toxic, they look awful, and they're seriously dangerous to human health. But the science behind how we actually clean this water up, it's absolutely brilliant. To really wrap our heads around the massive scale of this solution, we just have to look at the global market. According to S&P Global, the global capacity for activated carbon has surged by roughly 400,000 metric tons just since 2020. That is a staggering amount of material. To put that into perspective, that's roughly the weight of 4 entire Nimitz-class aircraft carriers. And this huge demand is heavily driven by tightening environmental regulations for water and air purification around the world.
So, here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with a global water solution, move into the science of adsorption, walk through the batch experiment, look at controlling the process, talk about upcycling waste, and finally, scaling for industry.
Okay, Section 1, the global water solution.
Let's start with the big picture. Where is all of this incredibly valuable activated carbon actually being used? Well, a whopping 40% of the world's activated carbon consumption is dedicated entirely to water treatment. It's the absolute largest application out there, beating out air and gas purification at 22% and stuff like pharmaceutical industries and food processing at 18%. This really proves that activated carbon is a critical pillar of environmental pollution control.
Moving right along to Section 2, the science of absorption.
So how does this amorphous stuff actually work its magic? The crucial thing to understand here is the vocabulary. We're talking about adsorption, with a D. Adsorption is strictly a surface phenomenon where dye molecules attach directly to the surface of a solid adsorbent. You see, it's completely different from absorption, with a B, which permeates the whole volume, kind of like a standard kitchen sponge soaking up a spill.
Activated carbon is widely used specifically because of its extremely high surface area and highly porous structure. We're talking about a microscopic labyrinth of micropores and mesopores. This structure is so complex that a single gram of activated carbon, literally the weight of a paperclip, can have the internal surface area of an entire football field. All that vast space provides billions of tiny chemical binding sites to trap pollutants using molecular forces.
Which brings us to Section 3, the batch experiment.
To see this in action, we perform a classic experiment. You start by placing a measured volume of a dye solution, like methylene blue, right into a flask. Then, you add a known, precise amount of activated carbon. Next, the mixture is stirred or shaken thoroughly for about 20 to 30 minutes to give those dye molecules time to absorb onto the carbon surface. Finally, the solution is filtered to separate the carbon from the liquid. We then compare the color intensity of the filtrate with the original dye using a colorimeter, a spectrophotometer, or even just simple visual observation. That decrease in color clearly indicates the amount of dye removed and lets us calculate the exact adsorption capacity.
Let's look at Section 4, controlling the process.
Now, the efficiency of this dye-clearing magic isn't just totally random. You can't just toss carbon into dirty water and hope for the best. Several factors significantly influence the adsorption efficiency. Things like contact time, the initial dye concentration, the temperature of the water, and obviously the amount of activated carbon you actually use. But honestly, one of the most critical factors of the whole process is the pH of the solution. The pH totally dictates the electrostatic attraction here. Because methylene blue is a cationic dye, meaning it carries a positive charge, it is best captured when the water's pH is high or alkaline. That high pH creates a negative charge across the carbon surface, and, as we all know, opposites attract. It creates this perfect electrostatic attraction, practically locking the pollutant right onto the carbon.
Next up, Section 5, upcycling waste.
So if we need hundreds of thousands of tons of this stuff, where do we get it all without completely wrecking natural resources like wood and coal? Well, the brilliant answer lies in upcycling agricultural and industrial waste. Materials like discarded date pits, old waste carpets, and even expired beverages can be chemically activated into incredibly powerful adsorbents. Get this, activated denim fabric residue can achieve a surface area of over 1,700 square meters per gram. It is exceptionally good at pulling heavy metals like lead right out of the water.
And finally, Section 6, scaling for industry. So our batch experiment is a fantastic way to grasp the chemistry, but it does bring up a major logistical challenge. treating tiny flasks of water one by one isn't going to be enough to save a local river from a massive textile mill's daily runoff. How do we scale this exact same surface chemistry for billions of gallons of continuous wastewater?
While industries solve this using continuous fixed bed column operations, instead of just shaking a stagnant flask, contaminated wastewater is constantly pumped to flow downwards through a massive, packed bed of granular activated carbon.
By using very specific particle sizes, facilities can maintain a steady downward flow rate without choking up the column. This setup allows for continuous, large-scale purification. The dirty, toxic water goes in the top, and crystal clear water flows out the bottom, hour after hour, until the carbon is totally exhausted. It highlights just how important adsorption is as an economical and super efficient purification process.
Ultimately, this experiment demonstrates the amazing effectiveness of activated carbon for removing dyes from contaminated water. It's a beautiful cycle, taking everyday trash and transforming it into a tool for global environmental salvation. It really leaves us with a powerful question. If our garbage can literally clean our water, what other global crises contain their own hidden cures just waiting to be found? Thank you for watching this experiment presented by Dr. Chem. Keep learning, keep experimenting, and keep exploring the world of chemistry.